drinkag1.com/surf. These are just the dregs, but that is the best part, Scott. That's got
I
all
know.
the nutrients right there.
You know what I do is I dab that in my palm and I kind of put it right here on
Mm,
my neck and shit like
mm.
that. A little dab. AG1, baby. AG1.com/surf.
Drinkag1.com/surf.
Drinkag1.com/surf. Uh, for all your probiotic, all your vitamins, all your organic vitamins, nutrients. I'm a huge fan, and it's part of my health and stamina routine.
I agree. Brain power too. I'll tell you what. I went and got acupuncture for the first time in my life a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 1 week
Yeah,
ago.
sure.
And in the intake, the doctor was like, "Do you take any vitamins or supplements or blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "I never have in my life. The only thing that I take is drinkag1.com/surf." She goes, "Oh, I've heard." She goes, "I've heard of that, but like I don't. What's in it?" And I go, "I don't know. You got to research it on your own." So then when I was going through she put the needles in and I lay there for 45 minutes. And after the fact, she came in and she goes, "Hey, I looked up that AG1." She goes, "That's fantastic." She's like, "That has everything that I would have recommended that you do. And it's all in one. So just keep doing that." And I was like, "Sweet. That's why I got a clean bill of health."
There
So
you go. Perfect. I love it. Drinkag1.com/surf. Exactly. Yeah, guy. Yeah, guy, David. It's April 24th. It's Wednesday, April 24th. And it's a beautiful day here in Southern California. This is Spit. We're talking all things surf. And we had quite a week in surfing, David. First of all, let me say good morning to you, dear citizen.
good morning to you. Great to see you.
Likewise. So, look, we've got, of course, the Margaret River Pro finished up in stellar fashion. Um, the top five and the top 20 surfers. And what is it, the top 12 for women?
Great question. Don't know.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows? But, but
We're so good at our job.
no, but anyway, there's a little bit to talk about, a lot to talk about, perhaps. I've got
I
some
got
stuff.
plenty to talk about.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
top 10 for the women.
Okay, top 10. So top 10 women, top 20 male surfers going into the Chopu event in about a month. So where to begin? I guess we start with the Margaret River Pro because they absolutely hit a home run on finals day with really great surf. And when there's really great surf, you have really excited surf fans and you generally have incredible competition and waves that were surfed. And that was definitely the case here. Great waves for finals day and a feel good event, in my opinion. Jack Robinson and John Florence in the final. I mean, can you ask for more than that when you have 6 to 8 foot glassy blue main break at Margaret River?
Pretty exciting. I mean, look, this is exactly what we want out of surfing, and this is what we advocate for all the time. It's just running the best surfers and the best waves, and that's exactly what happened that day. Interestingly, I would not identify Margaret River as being one of the most progressive waves in the world, and wouldn't expect the high performance surfing to be done at Margaret River until the last 5 years. And I think John unlocked that with on a really big day when he was doing those really big turns, 5 or 6 years ago. Felipe doubled down on that 2 years ago with his really scintillating surfing on the right. Um, this year, I feel like it was a little bit more of the same, but it's never goes out of style. The John turn in the heat that he had against George Pitar, where he got the 10, but his wave before the 10 was like a high eight. And it is that turn that I'm talking about that we all have seen him do out there, but it's like he's going vertical into the section where there would be a lip to hit normally, where people would just snap off the lip, let's say. But he lays it on rail and kind of gets almost upside down and turns the board against the lip and then turns it all the way, does like a full wrapping torque turn, the entirety of the rail back into the pocket and then comes out of it. It is power. It is kind of the fundamentals that we talk about with power, speed, and flow of surfing, but it is incredibly progressive. And I don't know that there's another wave on the planet that would allow that exact style of turn better than Margaret River. So it's the surfers have elevated their game to redefine the way that that wave is surfed. And it has now become a highlight event of the year for me.
I agree. Power surfing is really brought to the forefront at this wave. And the bottom line is, I think you need a large lower half. Like you need a large trunk. John Florence is, first of all, he's bigger than you realize.
Mhm.
He's probably 6'1", maybe 6'2".
Yeah.
He's got massive legs. And this spot and the type of surfing that John has elevated this spot that we're expecting from this spot, you can't have chicken legs. You can't do that turn that you're talking about in full completion with full rail buried without a lower trunk that's thick and meaty. And I think we saw a little bit of that even from George Pitar. The kid was surfing insane. He was
Totally.
surfing incredible. I'm not taking anything away from him except that for him to beat John Florence at that spot, or Jack Robinson for that matter, or Jordy Smith for that matter, you better thicken up your lower half if you expect to do that turn. That's the turn you have to do to win this event. You
Mm.
have to surf in that fashion. And I think guys with skinny kind of like chicken legs, and I'm one of those guys, by the way, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to get past John or Jack or Jordy or Felipe for that matter, who has a strong lower body with, you know, sort of these little like slender surfing legs.
Well, it's like I said, the wave has won me over. One thing I like about the wave is also the pacing. It isn't just high speed down the line like snapper. There are slow moments on it, but you see the guys who have the lower body that you're talking about being able to really power past that and into the power of the wave. It's, I know people have made references to Sunset Beach when they talk about Margaret River. Sunset is an way vaster playing field, and the slow spots at Sunset are much larger, and the more intense spots are much more intense. So it's kind of this broader version of Margaret. Margaret is more compact and on the reef, but you still do have the one big outside section, a bit of slowness through the middle, and then the closing section that is on, dry reef often. And so being able to pace through the entire ride and really nail turns requires you to be both kind of sprightly in the right moment and then really heavy and power footed in the other moment. And yeah, John and, Jack Robinson, I think, have become the best at doing it.
And you mentioned two of the greatest regular foots on tour. And I feel like this wave and that turn, for lack of a better phrase, the John turn, that's the turn that we all need, that every competitor needs to reach for. For the backside surfers, the Gabe Medinas or the Idlos, their backside turn, although it's vertical and insane, and the apex of that turn is sort of up at the top of the turn, where the John or Jack Robinson apex is in the back third of the turn, is where
Mm-hmm.
now they're getting all of their rail engaged. And I feel like it's one of those rare waves where the regular foot or the front side surfer actually has the upper hand here because of what's required and where the apex of that turn is. It's almost at the back half of the turn, whereas the goofy footers, as I said, doing all of their energy, all of their turns sort of up at the top half of the turn, and they don't get that back swoop into the whitewater that it seems like John's getting.
Totally, which is how I won my $10 in that Pupo versus Pupo bet. Thank you very
I'm
much.
glad you brought that up. I did pay off the Samuel Pupo, Miguel Pupo bet that we had. Now,
Although
yeah.
in a bummer,
Oh,
the ranking shifted so much that one of those brothers was supposed to make the cut. Whoever won would make it, and whoever lost, which made it a really intense heat. They both didn't make the cut because I think Seth Moniz jumped so many spots in the rankings unexpectedly that it kind of Sammy got bumped down, even though he won the heat.
now, sort of one more note about the John turn, for lack of a better phrase. Um, we saw Jack Robinson in the final do an air on the outside section at 6 to 8 foot main break at Margaret's. pretty much almost as good as it gets, right? But he scored a 9.1. Now in the semifinal prior to that, John got a 10 for the turn that we're talking about. So I guess
No,
my
for a
question to
different
you,
turn. John John's was the layback that he got the 10 for.
right, but I mean, my point is that there was an air on the outside
Okay.
and there was a massive, incredible, never to be repeated again turn, but that it wasn't an air. So my
Okay.
question to you is, were these waves scored correctly? I guess the question is, did Jack Robinson deserve more than a 9.1 for doing something on the outside, getting into the air? And it was a legit good aerial. I'm not an aerial expert, but he certainly threw caution to the wind. Did he deserve a higher score than the 9.1? Did
Can,
he deserve a 10? You know, when you
can,
put those two waves back to back and you look at them both, you know, what's your feeling there?
can you remind me, did he do anything else on that wave?
Yeah, he did. He did the air, then he came down, did another little turn, and then finished it up with a, you know,
Yeah,
hammer.
that's right. So for clarity, for a listener, waves are only scored against other waves in the heat. So obviously it's you can't compare one heat to the next, although it could be argued that you should be able to. But I'll play your game with you. And I think that John John's felt like a 10 to me when I saw it, and Jack Robinson's did not feel like a 10 to me when I saw it. And John John's, when I saw it was a big layback that he did right into the lip on the first section. A lot of laybacks, people come out of it and have to like recover and get to their feet. This was so well executed that he was like he blew the board out and laid back with just one little finger, toenail hanging on the front foot. But the board was falling towards the bottom of the wave and his momentum was falling on top of the board, and he just basically landed it and rode out of it seamlessly without any downtime. And then the next two turns that he did were right in the criteria of speed, power, and flow. There was no downtime in those either. So he came out of layback, boom, did another turn. And then the end section smash was worth 5 points on its own. And so when that kind of level of intensity from the beginning of the ride to the end of the ride was like undeniable. It was just, there was not a moment where if anything would have gone wrong in any single moment in that ride, he would have fallen off, and it would have been high impact and intense and exciting, but he would have fallen off. Whereas Jack Robinson's, I felt like, again, the pacing was just a little bit slower. It was like an air to a land to then a reset of a turn. And then the end turn was good, but not fantastic. So that was the differentiation in the score to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, we've made mention before that your intuition, your first instinct, which you mentioned, which I think is right on, is obviously one that you should go with. I feel like it's that sort of Supreme Court um, definition of pornography. You know, like I don't know how to define a 10, but I know it when I see it. And that's kind of how we felt with John's wave. I also feel like John's wave is a wave that is better in real time. When they broke it down in slow motion, you're like, okay, gosh, yeah, I guess there's a little bit of luck involved. You know, like he just kind of got lucky and the board slid back under his feet. But when you watch it in real time, you're like, holy mackerel, that whole thing was just he's done that before. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it's one of those situations.
Yeah. I had a friend comment in kind of right at the end of the event that he felt finals day was overscored as a whole. He's like, basically this event was so lackluster for all the opening rounds leading up to this that this feels just like the ultimate gratification because we've waited so long for it and there's so many down days, and on the days they did run, it was really mediocre. Um, and I thought that there was a little bit of a point to be made. However, everything that we said to set up this segment about this wave really presenting a unique challenge that isn't on the rest of the tour, and then this day providing those opportunities for the surfers and the surfers elevating to those opportunities, I thought it was scored accurately. Like I did feel like John's was the 10, and I did feel like the 5 or 6 other nines that we saw throughout the day warranted those scores because these are the best surfers in the world, and they are at this spot that is totally unique is doing its thing, and they're elevating the sport of surfing in the style of surfing that they're doing today. Whereas I feel like so many other times on tour, I could just be watching the event, but flip on my phone and I see, somebody else on the internet doing a crazy air or crazy barrel somewhere else in the world that I think is superior. On this day, this was the surfing that I wanted to be watching, bar none.
Totally agree. And you know what? It's the first event of new CEO Ryan Crosby's reign as the WSL CEO, and he's off and running. Like, this guy's magic. He's got the golden finger, you know what I mean? So um
He lucked into it.
congratulations to
He
Ryan
lucked into it.
Crosby.
So the question that you presented to me last week, I did get feedback from a listener. You were quizzing me on Ryan Crosby's potential as the CEO of the WSL.
Yeah.
Somebody chimed in who worked with him at a previous employer, at
Oh,
his most recent previous employer, and he texted. So I guess they had worked together a long time ago, but he texted a recent coworker and basically posed the question that you were asking. And I'll leave names out of it, of course, but the way that the employee, coworker, colleague of Ryan Crosby's responded, he said, is he a vision guy? Is he a deal maker? And the colleague responded, to be honest, he was quite useless executive, not harmful or anything, but just a standard quote, a lot of pointless talking with no action, unquote kind of guy. Did not fix or hurt the company, just was here to collect his paycheck.
that seems kind of unfair.
Well,
You've
look,
just got
it's one person's opinion. I'm not
yeah,
saying this to knock Crosby in any way. I'm
yeah,
just it's more the answer to your question last week about is he a vision, but does he have
yeah,
potential vision
right,
for the WSL in the CEO role? You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
And so this is one listener's
So this
direct
kind of backs up your thing that he's just going to shepherd this thing toward the WSL towards whatever Diff Zer, what's his name?
yeah,
Zerk, Dirk,
Dirk.
Dirk Ziff,
My
whatever, whatever Dirk Ziff. By the
my
way, is there a better name for an evil black hat wearing CEO of a corporation?
he would be bald, how stroking a kitty cat on his lap
Now, by
with a
the way,
name like Dirk.
I've, I've never met him. I've heard he's a really nice gentleman. So
And Crosby too, like could be the nicest guy in the world. I have
I'm sure he is.
this is not an assessment on him as a
No,
person. It was just you based on your kind of questioning last week. It's just looking at his resume and what he's done up until now.
yeah,
It feels like this is a placeholder election, by the WSL placeholder CEO to get them to the sale or the next goal or whatever it is, but not necessarily like they're hiring a visionary who is radically transformed businesses. And what
yeah,
you and I want
yeah.
is the visionary who's radically going to transform businesses. So, by the way, we can run events that were like Margaret River's final day instead of Margaret River 6 days leading up to finals day.
Let me ask you this. I believe I know what I want. I believe I know what you want. We want less surfers in better waves. And so I guess my question to you is, does Ryan Crosby have it in him to make this transformation?
No,
That's basically the transformation.
no, but more importantly, I don't think Dirk is empowering Ryan to ever make that transformation.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, here we go.
Just like I
Yeah.
said, just doesn't want somebody to come in and, keep the wheels turning, but not to change direction.
By the way, this surfboard behind you, I can't take my eyes off of it. What do you have there behind you? Because it's got a crazy down rail up in the nose and it's beaked out. There's a lot of volume. What
It
is this
is. It
thing?
is a
What
lot
is
of
this?
volume.
Oh, it's a Christensen.
Shoot.
I should have known.
Christensen. It's a Christensen. I think it's the lane splitter.
It's
It's a
got a
short
really
board.
fast looking rail.
Yeah, it's a short board, but like you said, higher volume, kind of fun formants.
Old guy volume.
I know.
Nice.
It's now in a precarious situation. I think
Oh,
it
I'm
was.
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's got a cool resin tint on the bottom too. Abstract resin swirl.
So
Um,
anyway, just to finish up with Margaret's, the final, John seemed to have, you know, lost some of his mojo. His semifinal was just where he peaked, and Jack Robinson looked insane. And frankly, John didn't get the better ways in that heat.
Kudos to Jack Robinson. This is his second win at Margaret River over John Florence, and so absolutely deserves it. And it really kind of rating shakeup, actually. Obviously, the cut was important to a lot of people, but this top five is there's some people that you would expect, but the bottom five are names that you not wouldn't necessarily expect. And then the bottom 10 is kind of shocking. Yago Dora's in 22nd. We would never expect that from him. Gabriel Medina's in 19th. Italo is in 16th, which is crazy. Um, Kanoa's in ninth. Cole Houshman in eighth. Jake Marshall sitting in sixth. Big ups to Jake Marshall. Jordy Smith in fifth. Ethan Ewing in fourth. John Florence in third. Jack Robinson jumps 3 spots up into the second position. And then Griffin Colapinto still wearing the yellow jersey in first.
Well, I believe what this means, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to see a lot of crazy matchups coming up, like, you know, Yago and Gabe against, you know, Jack Robinson and like, there's going to be some heavy veterans like Gabe that are now in the lower tier of the seating up against young guys that are going to be like, holy shit, I got Gabe Medina in my heat. How did this happen? I thought I was supposed to get easier draws.
Completely. And then below the cut line, of course, the biggest name, Kelly Slater in 32nd place. Kelly's had the same 17th place finish in all 4 events that he competed in this year. Obviously, he didn't show up in Portugal, so that's a throwaway. But that was a really surprising year for Kelly. Interestingly, one savvy listener pointed out that Kelly actually has a road to requalification.
Hell yes. Let's hear this crazy idea. How does all this happen? What does he have to become a citizen of like China or something? What's the deal?
Maybe if he wants to get to the Olympics. But remember last year, the WSL made an amendment in the rule book that stipulated former title holders, world champs, can accrue points towards requalification after the cut line via a wild card. So it used
Yes.
to be that if you got a wild card, you wouldn't get points towards requalification. You would just earn prize money, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they made a stipulation last year because Kelly and Steph were below the cut line going into the cut. So last minute, they added a rule that was like, wait, if you're a world champ, you can get points. So Kelly could get wild cards and, will want to surf Cloudbreak and Chopu. And if he wins and semifinals, he has to do those two things to accrue enough points. He will then be above what the cut line has been in the past based on the points that he's already accrued for the beginning of the season. And then those two events, he can accrue enough to, at the end of the year, qualify and be back on tour in 2025.
Oh my, that's crazy.
So it's so stupid. And by the way, it undermines the entire credibility of the World Surf League. You know what I mean? Like for us to, in order for us to feel like any of this has meaning, there has to be stakes. It has to be somebody is going to lose their job or somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, they're not going to be back, whatever. And then to undermine all of it with, no, he can lose. He can completely lose. Everybody forces him into retirement. Kelly never retired, by the way. He never said he was retiring. He never made a retirement announcement. Yet all of his closest friends, it was like an intervention on the internet last week. All of his friends like, Kelly, go ahead. You've done enough. Walk away, buddy. Take a bow. And Kelly's just like, no, you know what? I'm going to get Griff back. I'm going to get Griff back. Griff got me this time. I'm going to get him back. And what he means is, I'm going to get him back at the next event. He's like, I'm going to be back in Tahiti next event, and I'm going to get Griff back. And he will do that. And then he'll get enough points that he's going to show up next season.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me, except that his partner's an expectant mother of his child, and it would be surprising. I'll just put that word on it. I don't want to.
You mean it would be on brand for Kelly?
I'm just saying that I don't I don't think Kalani wants Kelly on tour, and I don't think Kelly wants Kelly on tour.
Kelly,
But the little devil on Kelly's
exactly.
shoulders, like, you know what? I could beat Griff. I could go into. I could maybe win another. But this, the smart, unselfish Kelly, the little angel's like, I'm going to be there, a new chapter in my life for my child, for my partner. I'm going to be taking the kid to like little, preschools and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the thing
You
is,
even thinking that
preschool
far.
doesn't start till you're 3. I got 3 years.
Exactly. Even thinking through the process you just went through, talked him back onto tour. Him saying, I'm going to take my kid to preschool, like, wait, that is way less interesting than getting shacked in Cloud Break. Like, he, the little Kel, there was always the little, let's say, altruistic voice in Kelly that was fighting up against the egomania that
Yeah.
was like trying to say, hey, man, go spend some more time at home, do some stuff with family, whatever. And the egomaniac was like, no, 11 world titles is what I want. But that
He's
those
got 11.
voices, I
He
know.
needs
And
12.
that's how he got there.
Oh,
And so, right. But you're right. So now 12 is the new mantra. But those voices have shifted power. I do think you're right. Where like the egomaniac is still there, but it's much, much smaller. And the other voice, the selfless voice, has gotten larger and larger. We just don't know when the 50 is going to tip over to 51%, like when that scale is going to officially flip. And the way I heard him talking post loss, Margaret River, made me think it's not ready to tip quite yet. It's starting
really?
to, but
There needs to be like a meme with the little devil Kelly versus the angel Kelly.
exactly. Green Room Times, you hear us? Um,
Uh,
all right. Well, on the women's side, Caitlin Simmers is still in first position. The rest of the top 10 looks like in order: Joanne Defay, Molly Picklum in third, Brisa Hennessy, Gabriella Bryan. Congratulations on her big win. This bumped her 5 spots up. Caroline Marks, Betty Lou Sakura Johnson, Tyler Wright in eighth, Tatiana Weston Webb in ninth, and Sawyer Lindblad barely makes the cut in this event, by the way, I think by making the finals. Um, and jumped 2 spots. So she was below the cut line in 12th, and this final second place finish got her up into 10th position, requalification.
you know, I think deserves some kudos or some sort of like applause or something is
Hmm.
Sally Fitzgibbons. Sally
Really?
Fitzgibbons has been on tour almost as long as Kelly Slater. Like she's been around a long time and she's a battler. She keeps battling and she just never can like get there, get to the.
Well, look,
So
Sally, I, I've made this argument about Sally in the past, and I haven't made it in a while just because she fell off tour. She hasn't been on my radar. But my argument against Sally was just that there's no point of difference in her surfing. She is a battler and she's a great kind of complete surfer. But if you put her in a heat almost against, I won't say almost against anybody else because she was definitely better than the back half of the tour for her entire career. But if you put her against the top 5 surfers, let's say Carissa Moore, you go, well, Carissa Moore's got more power. And then you put her up against Lakey and you go, well, yeah, Lakey's also got more power, but Lakey also does airs. And then you put her up against Stephanie Gilmore and you go, well, Stephanie Gilmore's got more style. And there's just Sally's a complete surfer, but it's a complete at 70%. She needed this real distinct point of difference if she ever wanted to stand out. And unfortunately, she never did. And you're right, she'd been on tour for probably 15 years and she has probably 6 or 7 second place finishes at the end of various seasons, but it's just not quite enough to be a standout.
is she going to go to the Challenger Series and continue her career? Or is there, I mean, how old do you think she is?
I could find out real quick. So she was
Her rookie year was '09.
okay, 33.
Okay. And she's been relegated. just like they do in football or soccer. There's a relegation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Is she going to continue on?
I mean, look, I'd be surprised if you even wanted to see her again. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't
it,
mean me. I just mean like it seems like when you're 33 and you've been doing it for a long time, it's kind of like, and you're not, I mean,
I I'd say, look, if she really figured out a way to radically reinvent her surfing, then absolutely she could make a go because all of her experience is a asset over most other surfers. I just don't know what that would be for her at this point, you know.
yeah.
I mean, there's an opportunity to kind of reinvent the female surfers have not uh wired the air game yet. You know, there's Aaron Brooks and Sierra Kerr that haven't gotten on tour yet that are doing it. And so if she could kind of bring what they're doing to the tour, then that would be something. But otherwise, or maybe even like really spending time in big barreling surf. And then when she's on the CT, taking the reins at Pipe and Chopu and the other big wave spots that are new for the women's side of the tour, I think she could, you know, there's an opportunity for her to dominate that. But I would have wanted her to do that in the last 5 years in preparation for the last 2 years, and she didn't. And so at 33, it might be time. She's already a cultural icon in Australia. I mean, she does endorsement deals with, you know, KFC and like uh, uh, grocery store brands and car brands and stuff like that. So I think there's opportunity. She's a great spokesperson. So I think there's tons of opportunity for her to have a professional speaking career for the next 10 plus years if she wanted to. But I don't know what she
Well,
wants.
those sponsorship opportunities perhaps suggest that it would be wise to just continue on grinding as a Challenger Series surfer so that your name's in the sporting, spotlight, so to speak, and you're still relevant, because you don't see her dropping incredible edits or anything like that. Like,
No, but that is, you use the word grinding, and that's exactly what it is. And so, does she want to continue the grind of living out of a suitcase for 10 months a year for the next decade of her life? She's already been doing it for 15 or 20 years, you know?
well, I mean, Challenger Series, there's two events in Australia, and then I think the next big ones there's probably some in France.
It's still a grind.
Yeah, it is. By the way, I've got a question about Carissa Moore and frankly, a couple of other surfers
Okay.
regarding the Olympics. Carissa's not on tour. Zhao Chianca is barely on tour. He was injured. Felipe is not on tour. Are these folks going to do some contests prior to the Olympics to sort of sharpen their competitive edge so that they've got it? Or are they going to just be able to flip the switch, throw on a jersey after maybe not surfing in a heat in 3 or 4 months?
Flip the switch. I think their level of experience with contests is second nature at this point.
You're saying that after 3 or 4 months of not putting on a jersey, their very first jersey, I guess the Olympic, the way the format is too, it allows you to kind of lose a heat and keep going, I think.
I think their time would be better spent surfing Chopu than it would be going and surfing a contest somewhere.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Let me ask you another question. Your top 10 men: Liam O'Brien, Kanoa, Cole, Baron Mamiya, Jake Marshall, Jordy Smith, Ethan Ewing, John Florence, Jack Robinson, Griffin Colapinto. Would you be okay with just those guys on tour for the next 4 events, 5 events, whatever it is?
Of course, that's what we want all
I
year long.
know. I agree. I'm looking at it. And
Yeah,
because I saw the girls, I'm like, that's a solid list of girls right there. I'd be happy just watching them.
of course.
And yeah, so
Well, so breakout year, by the way, for George Patar. I mean, you kind of mentioned it already, but look, his surfing at Bell's was, you know, pretty impressive. And he got on the map in that event because of that narrow loss to Ethan Ewing. But then it was great to see him in a follow-up event, and he fully delivered in the follow-up event. So I think George Patar, you know, every season there seems to be one Australian surfer whose name we never heard before, who really is able to elevate to the world stage when given the opportunity. That was Morgan Sibilic a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was Ryan Callanan
I was
five
just
years
going to
ago or
say
6 years
that
ago.
Ryan Callahan's sort of underperforming.
Totally. Yeah. And then, but now it's George Pitar having his breakout year. He took out Griffin Colapinto in this event, which was world number one. He took out Cole Houshman, which was the Bells winner. And then Liam O'Brien, who is kind of an underdog. Liam O'Brien surfs incredibly, you know.
Yeah.
I see him stand up on a wave in every event, and I'm like, who is that? That guy looks amazing. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's Liam O'Brien. And he ultimately lost, George Pitar ultimately lost to John Florence in this event, which, you know, that was an unbelievable heat that John put together with the 10 and the high nine. But shout out to George Pitar for
There was
sure.
definitely a line of demarcation between those two in that heat. I
Totally.
mean, that's where sort of it was almost man versus boy.
Mm-hmm. Completely. And that is what those are the surfers that we kind of constantly advocate for that we want to see in the world's best waves. The other standout performance for me of this event was Seth Moniz. He had the performance of his year, and it was when he needed it most. I mean, he was well below the cut line, and he showed up at this event, got the job done, and will be on tour for the rest of the season in waves that he deserves to kind of be able to perform in. So,
Yeah, we'll see what happens. That was exciting for sure. That was one of the feel good moments of the event. And this event had some emotion, with the Pupo brothers and with Seth Moniz and George Pitar having another great event. Good
yeah,
stuff.
really good stuff. Great event. Can't wait for Chopu, by the way. I have a question. Have you been following Kalohi Andino's 2% union movement?
Sort of on the periphery. I saw that they had some event somewhere and it was like raging kids out of control, slam dancing or something. Fill me in. I'm not too engaged with it, to be honest with you, but go ahead.
Well,
What do we have here?
the reason I bring it up is just because it dovetails with so much of what we've talked about on the podcast over the years, which is watching the surf brands that really created the culture or helped at least define and usher the culture in a certain direction or another, seeing those brands become publicly traded conglomerates and then ultimately go bankrupt, and seeing, that being sold uh, and tarnished. So Kalohi Andino basically is off O'Neill very, very recently, but prior to that, he had started this 2% thing. He just calls it the 2%. It's a movement, is what I think he's referring to it as. And now they do sell merch, but it was a way to shine the light on the other local surfers in San Clemente, be able to he's got his filmer, that's with him all the time producing video content. That is expensive, and young kids at the beach can't afford to do that, but have his filmer film all the local kids and showcase their surfing and shine a light on the next generation, basically. And so more recently, he is kind of now off O'Neill, doesn't have that professional obligation, and has since set out a mission statement with 2% and a website. And like I said, now selling merch, and kind of formalized the movement with basically an FU to the industry as part of his mission statement. And I just found it to be interesting. It's a coalescing of so much of what you and I have talked about. It also, to me, feels like a version of what Dane Reynolds has been doing with Former and with his Chapter 11 TV, but a much more sanitized version and a little bit less, I don't want to say authentic, because I think it is authentic. It just feels like an Orange County version compared to Dane Reynolds' Ventura version, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of reading about it right now, and
Do you want me to read just a little bit of it
sure.
for listeners who haven't already read it? But basically said, he put on as his mission statement a quote to the surf industry. He says, "Dear industry, surf culture, big name surf brands, and the surf lifestyle are dead. I'm going to actually cut out the expletives. There's a lot of F words, and I'm just going to leave them out." He said, "You got every up and coming kid thinking that they're one of the Paul brothers, trying to gain clout in any way, shape, or form with no gumption, no backbone, or no ideas. These kids are not leaders, they are followers. Since the industry went from mags and movies to TikTok and Instagram, we have seen an entire fabric of it be ripped to shreds, sideways, back and forth, and into pieces on the floor to your for your dogs to piss on and your baby to puke on. There are many reasons why this is happening, but two very big glaring ones are because the brands got bought by these huge conglomerates and overexpanded. Wanting to see a big return on their quote investments, everything is in quote the numbers. There's no look and no feel, no real, well, 500 kids were at this yelling and screaming at for a movie or a band. It's more, how can you put that into a spreadsheet and into analytics? Well, I'm into manalytics, manpower that you can't put into numbers. There's no longer a marketing genius in brands to lead these kids in the right direction. They have one guy doing four people's jobs, and the surfers market themselves. Surf culture is dead, and we must revive it.
I don't know. uh, I need to digest this a little further, but part of me feels that there's some hypocrisy here. There's, I mean, this is a guy who raked in tons of dough from Target or somewhere like that, right?
For
Wasn't he
sure.
like a Walmart guy or something?
Target. Yeah, Target.
Target. I mean, this guy raked in tons of money, and by the way, more power to him. I'm glad for it. I just, I, I think he's on to something. I think his heart's in the right place. I think, you know, but I'm not sure he has a right to be angry about anything. Like, dude, look you live in Orange County, you're surfing lowers with your best bros and filming. Like, you know,
Yeah.
if he was like mounting a movement to help soldiers in Ukraine or something, maybe you'd be like, okay, we've got it, we got some. But I mean, how angry can you be? You know what I mean? Like, how much angst is there? It reminds me of kind of like the punk movement in the early, or I guess the late 70s, early 80s. Like up in Orange County, there was like 999. It was like, okay, yeah, you're driving around in your BMW and you're talking about anarchy. Wait a minute.
Right.
But again, I don't know exactly. I'm a fan of Chloe Andino. I think he's a great spokesperson. I think he's fun to listen to. I think he brings a lot to the surf space, so to speak. Um, and so I guess more will be revealed. I'm a little ignorant exactly of what this is, but
I think you did a good job though, like assessing it in real time, because that is sums up some of the way that I felt about reading it, where it had a lot, like I said, a lot of expletives and more angst than I expected to hear from him, because everything that he's talking about that is the problem with surfing, he was the poster boy for. And so there's a potential that maybe, yeah, he does see, oh, shoot, the error of my ways. And so I want to kind of redirect and refocus. And I think it is, I love the fact that he is focusing so much more on the Groms in his area than he is on himself. But it does, what you're talking about is also really, really salient, which is those Groms live in $2 million homes near the beach. And it feels a little insincere to have that much angst when you have that much privilege. And it's okay, like there is something in various movements to rebel against when there was real plight. But if what you're rebelling against is corporations that, you don't need to be that angsty against corporations, I guess, that just pilfered your culture. Um, I don't know. So interested.
well,
I did reach out to Chloe. I am going to interview him so that we can kind of tease some of this apart, because I do want to hear. I think he is a thoughtful, like deep thinker.
yeah.
The more that I've gotten to hear from him over the years, especially since post tour life and through what Stab has done with him. So I will get kind of into the nitty gritty with him on
Good,
those
good.
things, because it is what the sentiment that he is sharing is shared by you and I. It's shared by everybody around the world. I mean, these are the conversations, like I said, that we've been having on the podcast for a long time. It was just surprising to hear them from him, is all.
I think to my part of my thing is like the surf industry is not dead, and it's never dead. It's how you define the surf industry. And you
Yeah.
and I I have always defined the surf industry as the guys who build my surfboards. That's
Yeah.
it. Clothing companies, those come and go.
Yeah.
But the authentic culture is derived, and our history and our legacy comes from, the Chris McElroys of the world, like the hardcore San Clemente surf ghetto guys, the guys in Oceanside that are grinding boards, the guys in San Diego, the guys up at the Santa Cruz Board Builders Guild,
Guild.
all the Hout Shop, the guys in the far north, all the guys on the East Coast, the guys that are building our surfboards. That's the surf industry. If you think clothing companies that are like, yeah, I'm going to sponsor Joe Blow over here for 2 years for X and send him on a surf trip for an edit, they don't care. They're just trying to milk it, which I
Yeah.
can understand. That's what you can sense. I have a little bit of angst about that
Hmm.
because I've seen it happen. We've all seen it happen. Now, I would say, look, there was a time, when Jeff Hackman and Bob Hurley are selling board shorts out of the trunk of their car in 1980 or 1977. Okay, that's pretty core,
Yeah.
But at some point, we jumped the shark when we bought Cleveland Golf, and let's just define the surf industry for what it is. It's the surfboard building industry. That's who the surf industry is. It's the hard goods. That's what it is, man. It's surfboards, fins, leashes, shit you need to go surfing, you know?
Presented by the Boardroom Show coming up in October.
Speaking of which, by the way, Best in Show, we have announced, and I've announced it on here before, but it's official. The Twinser is the category for the Best in Shore board build off presented by Go Fast Campers. Guess what? Hard goods that you need to go to buy. Open to all board builders and shapers around the world. It's free to enter. And there is cash and prizes. And the good folks, excuse me, at Go Fast Campers have stepped up to support the surfboard building industry. You can get platform campers, platform rooftop tents, and Go Fast Campers is having a summer sale, David. $1,000 off of campers at gofastcampers.com. So Twinser, I've already got a lot of excited board builders. The Twinser, as you know, my design du jour, my very, I don't want to say famous, but the board that I rode forever was a Mykinson Twinser. I rode it for about 4 or 5 years straight until I destroyed it. And I've been a big fan of the Twinser design for a long time. And there are many Twinser sort of icons like Larry Maybill and Stu Kenson, of course, Will Jobson, Rusty Preisendorfer, Mandela. Manny's been making Twinsers. A lot of people have been making Twinsers for a long time. I'm sure Panda Blake. I'm probably missing quite a few guys, but the Twinser design's an exciting design. It offers you all the squirt and speed of a twin fin with all the hold and drive of a quad. So, yeah, the Twinser design, Best in Show board build off. All you got to do is build a board and show up, and you're in, and it's going to be fun.
So I need you to help define a Twinser.
Uh-oh.
I saw on the graphic that you published on Instagram yesterday or the day before, there was like a degrees of cant or separation between the two side fins. Is that a mandated?
Well, first, let me say that
Okay.
I'm not a board builder, nor am I a shaper. So I'm not really the guy
Okay.
to dictate what makes a Twinser or not. And that's why it's kind of wide open. A Twinser is whatever you want to make it. But some of the experts like Stu or Rusty or Blake, I know Blake has opinions on it, suggest that there is an amount of cant that needs to occur, a degree amount relative to the large side twin fin.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what that number is, to be honest with you. And a lot of it depends on how the fin box is put in. Some of the fin box are put in with a cant already set up in them.
Right.
Some of the fins are built with cants already in them. So, but I will say this, the Twinsers that I've had, there has been some degree of cant relative to the back large twin fin. The small little Twinser canard fin has had some cant. And there is a little magic in the sauce there. What that number is, I don't know. I just threw 9 degrees on there just
Oh,
to
okay.
just out of, design. I was just making a design for the graphic itself. And
Gotcha. Well, that's going to be considered the Bible now, and everybody's going to go off that. You're
no,
going
no, no.
to.
That was supposed to be like, it was supposed to look like some engineers were just making little notes on a piece of paper. I guess
You
I did.
did, and I took it very seriously, obviously.
Did you
Um,
did you solve the mathematical equation that's on the graphic?
no, I didn't. I didn't realize there was one.
Uh,
Well, I will say, as it relates to cant, when we were in El Salvador with Nick Timponi, I was talking about a board that I had gotten from them in 2018. And I took a wave a couple of years ago. I took a wave, surfed it all the way to the beach and docked it in the sand and actually depressed the fin box in doing so. And I got up, I picked the board up and looked at it, and it was just like slightly askew, like I slightly pushed the fin box in. So there was a little bit of cant on the side fin. I was like, dang it. So I took it out of the water, went home, and rather than having it professionally fixed, rather than having the fin box reset, rather than even applying, you know, sanding it down and adding fiberglass, I just put resin on it and just sealed the hole basically. So that fin is now at a slight cant when it shouldn't be. Board works great. So I'm not going
yeah.
to say it works better than it did originally, but it works as every bit as good as it used to. And it's just slightly askew. And so I'm okay with experimentation. You don't need to mandate what the cant is in those twinsers, because tell them they can't and then they can, and then it ends up being better.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll reiterate that I don't know the magic formula, but I will say this: I am sort of Southern California centric when I list off shapers. I know that there's a lot of shapers in Brazil, in Japan, in Australia, of course, in Hawaii, that are also longtime Twinser uh, advocates and aficionados. And I'm not trying to leave any of them out. And in fact, the whole entire surfboard building world, of course, the guys at Pukas, all up and down in France, all of Europe, everyone's invited. It's free to enter your one board design. And there's information on boardroomshow.com. If you just click on Best in Show, it'll give you all the information, but it's really quite easy. You just send me an email and say, hey, I'm going to be there, and you're in. Bring
Well,
your board.
what's the deadline to get the board in?
You show up on Friday, October 11th, which is our setup day at the Del Mar Fairgrounds in the exhibition hall, and we will put your board in the Best in Show board build off presented by Go Fast Campers exhibit. And as you know, there's it's quite an exhibit. It gets tons of eyeballs. Everybody's all the people that walk the floor, all the consumers, all the surfers. It's a lot of fun to see what people have come up with. And we've had some great, like last year, we've had some great winners. Shea Soma,
Yeah.
sort of an underground shaper, won against, a litany of well-respected, lifetime surfboard shapers. And Ryan Sakels won one year. Donald Brink has won. We've had Rennie Yater win. We've had
Jeez.
Dane Hance from, I think, Paragon Milling. Is that right?
Yeah.
We've had quite a few. Gary Linden's. We had quite a few,
I
established
went
and not so established surfboard builders.
after Shea Soma's big win this year. I was in San Luis Obispo and I spent an hour probably plus with Shea, just chatting and learning more about him and everything. He's an incredible. I checked out his shaping bay, went to his house, and love Shea.
Yeah, really good guy. One of the many good guys, and these are the kinds of guys that I could see there being some. I want to lift them up. I want them to
Mhm.
get all the due that they deserve. And that's something that I would love to see Kolohe drive towards, is you know, these guys that are doing what they do because they love doing it, not for the corporate millions. And that's like the Chris McElroys of the world, for lack of a, because I know that that's somebody that Chloe could relate to when
Totally.
you mention him.
At the opposite end of the spectrum, and a complete non sequitur, I just got an email from Anastasia Ashley.
Oh my. I love that girl.
I do
I'm a
too.
big
I'm
fan. I am
actually,
a big fan.
I became a big fan because of the stab piece that
Me
you
too.
talked about a
That's
couple
me
weeks
too.
ago.
That's exactly right. Did she
She
listen to our topic?
No, she didn't, but she said she's got some new shoe line that she's launching, and she's going to send me some product, and then she wants to potentially discuss on the podcast. So maybe we'll have a Anastasia Ashley interview in the future. But it wasn't just a mass email; it's a direct email
Oh, cool.
referencing a couple of things. So I appreciate that. I've never met her before, but I would love to interview her for Surf Splendor. And so look forward to that. Late breaking
Yeah,
news.
for
Um,
sure.
do you want to go to commercial, do some business, and then come back with our final topics for the day?
Sure.
Factormeals.com/surf50. Let me tell you, Factor Meals has filled a specific gap in our lives that has simplified our busy schedules and satisfied and nourished us. If you follow me on social media, you know that I love to cook. My wife and I love food and wine, but there are still at least 5 meals a week where we're just underprepared, short on time, and don't want to make a bad dietary decision, nor sacrifice the pleasure that we get out of dining. Factor has solved it. Chef prepared meals that are delivered to your house weekly. They take 2 minutes to heat up and they're designed to be eaten anywhere. There's no prep, no cooking, and you can recycle the package that it comes in. Delicious meals that are good for you with over 35 options to choose from each week. Go to factormeals.com/surf50. Less expensive than dining out, more delicious, more nutritious. Factormeals.com/surf50. Rocketmoney.com/surf. Just this week, my wife figured out she was paying a subscription for Showtime, but then also paying for Paramount Plus, which includes Showtime for free. That's precisely what Rocket Money was designed for. A modern tool that meticulously tracks the details that we easily get distracted from. It's a finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your monthly spending, and helps you lower your bills. It gives you freedom by helping you see your subscriptions in a simple dashboard and alerts you about hidden fees or increases. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/surf. Calm the clutter in your head, simplify the tedium of your financial life, and find freedom through rocketmoney.com/surf. Welcome back. I wanted just to acknowledge April 20th was Earth Day. The month of April, I kind of consider as Earth Month. And there's a couple of things that I could point out. Surfrider. I had a meeting with Surfrider earlier this week to discuss some surf related stuff. They are 40 years old this year. They're incredible. And they do a lot of good work that we really overlook and don't discuss often enough on this show. And then they were sharing with me some of their membership numbers, and I was actually shocked to hear how few members there are. And then I realized, oh shoot, I'm not a member of Surfrider Foundation. I've been a member in the past, and through the podcast, as we did a giveaway promotion with Spy sunglasses years ago, where we actually, anybody who bought a pair of Spy sunglasses, we gifted a membership to. So I've probably gifted 100 memberships. But I wasn't currently a member until this week. And so I just wanted to point direction to Surfrider Foundation and encourage people to become a member and support the organization. They have 200 chapters and clubs with lots of active participants and volunteers. They have an incredible track record of success for over their 40 years. It's they let you dictate how much you want to contribute monthly. So you could do a $5 membership. I did a $20 membership, $20 monthly membership. But I just implore listeners to, I'll put a link in the show notes and they can sign up and support Surfrider Foundation.
Cool. Well, yeah, like Surfrider, I'm a
Are you
fan.
are you a member, Scott?
I don't believe I am a member, no. But
Get back on the bandwagon.
okay, I will.
Um, and then Timber Surf Co. You know Ryan Lynch from Timber Surf Co.
Oh yeah.
He messaged me yesterday because he's like, dude, me and my buddies were planning a trip to El Salvador next month. Tell me more about what you guys did. So he's sold on what we did, and I connected him with Waterways, and looks like they're gonna figure it all out. But he goes, hey, you have any new boards coming? I want to send you some of my cork traction pads. So
Um,
he makes traction pads out of cork, and he said, quote, this is his text to me, quote, I make them by hand because I'm an idiot, but they're awesome. So
I got an interesting thing about pads, and maybe Ryan can reply to this, but somebody sent me a thing, Alejandro, I think his name is, sent me a thing that said, "Hey, I'm I'm so over pads, and I think you're over pads. Do you use pads?"
depends on the board. So
That's by the way, that's silly. I think that's silly
high
because that's to
performance.
suggest that you want traction on some boards and that you don't want traction on other boards. That's what you're telling me when you.
Nope. I want traction on all boards, and wax works good. Pads work better, but pads look ridiculous on a fish or a
Okay.
longboard or whatever else, or mid-length even. So high performance, pointy thruster, my Channel Islands Too Happy has a
Yeah.
traction pad on it.
All right. So it's a sad pad situation. You're embarrassed by putting a pad on a fish because it looks sad.
It
Sad
looks
pad.
sad on a fish. Yes, I will agree
Sad.
with that. Yeah.
Okay, so Alejandro said, "Look, I'm over," and I'm quoting him or I'm paraphrasing him. "I'm over pads, but what I really like is the hump, the last little humpy pad that's on the back there where your foot is, so it doesn't slide off. Just the back hump, which, as you may recall, in the '80s, that was kind of a thing. You just got that little back slide off pad part, and I'm kind of with him on that."
I like it. I had a Timmy Patterson swallowtail when I was like 20 years old that I just used that back stomp part. I
Yes.
like literally cut the pad and just put that on there just to push my foot up against.
So Alejandro is like, how come they don't make those anymore? Why can't you just buy just that thing?
Yeah.
And I think Ryan could be onto something there. He could own that little
Boom.
slice of the market.
Well, Ryan, and obviously his pads are made out of cork, as I stated, so it's a renewable source. The reason why I bring it up is obviously in light of the Earth Day conversation. But he said, I'm going to send you pads. And I go, you know what? Let's give one away. I don't need three. He goes, I'm sending you a 3-pack. I don't need three. So I said, Scott and I are going to give away a traction pad. Timber Surf Co., their website is timbersurfco.com if you do want a cork traction pad. But we're going to give it to this week's best comment on YouTube. So we're going to publish this episode of Spit on YouTube. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube right now. The best comment, which Scott and I will pick next week. I am not going to define whether it needs to be the funniest or the most insightful or the most, I don't know what, or the smartest. It just needs to be the best. And so Scott and I are next week going to determine what is the best comment, and you will win a traction pad from Timber Surf Co.
All right, cool. Well, I look forward to doing that. That'll be fun.
Well, look,
Please.
I don't know. You should get in there, mix up in the comments
I
on
know
there.
I do need to do that. I apologize. You're right. I need to do that. I need to
I
get involved because I'm sure that there's people asking questions and
Well, like one of the comments from last week was, um, he's like, look, these events that we're watching with the WSL in the 80s, there used to be these scenarios where, a local wild card would storm through the event. And it was the most exciting possible thing that would happen. And Tom Curran famously,
well, Martin Potter is the really famous one because
exactly.
that came out of
So,
left field. We knew Kern was coming up, but North Americans didn't know anything about Martin Potter. He took down Sean Thompson and blah, blah, blah.
yeah. And so, I mean, obviously we have a wild card situation now, and that's how George Patar kind of did what he did. But he just through that comment provided a history lesson, I guess is what it was. And that's what I appreciate is so many of our listeners are more knowledgeable than you and I
Oh,
actually
for
in
sure.
certain
Sure.
probably in all ways, but certainly in very specific ways. And so
Yeah.
being able to have kind of a community engagement platform and glean some of those insights is really valuable. And so I appreciate those comments. So thank you to the YouTube viewers and subscribers for doing that. And, we'll give you a traction pad next week.
Will you nudge me and kind of remind me? Because I do go on YouTube a lot, and I'm involved. Like I'm heavily involved in guitar stuff on YouTube. So my algorithm spits me out guitar things, and
Yeah.
but I need to go and engage with the listeners because David and I are big fans of yours. We really appreciate you listening and watching and stuff. So I'm going to do my best to get in there and just provide some commentary. So ask some questions, you know.
Absolutely. And I will remind you, the thing is the video edit takes a little bit longer to publish, so it's not as timely as the audio podcast. Sometimes it's 24 hours behind, but once it goes live, I'll send it to you and then you can engage from there. The other final thing as it relates to Earth Day is we're giving away to one of our subscribers this month. We're giving away a Maui Leaf or a Timponi surfboard made in the Maui Leaf Light construction. So Nick Timponi and I had a conversation in El Salvador and published that on Surf Splendor to discuss what that is. But you and I, we could discuss like the Maui Leaf Light construction. Their effort with that is to create and usher kind of more sustainable board building materials into the market. And just as a practical example for listeners to better understand this, there's a supply chain, and the supply chain has these kind of products that have been historically used. And so that's what people use. And in order for introduction for new products to happen, somebody like the Timponis have to buy this new product. Well, they're on Maui. And if they're just buying a small quantity and it's not available through the supply chain, traditional supply chain, it's wildly expensive for them to get that product to Maui. Obviously, there's a learning curve. Often that product isn't built for the surf industry. It's designed for some other industry. So they're kind of adapting it and modifying it for surfboards. So that's a long learning curve. And then there is customer adoption, whether or not the customers even want that thing. And then once they decide they want it, turns out it's way more expensive. So, it's just a slow, long process, but they've been at it for over a decade now with this Maui Leaf Light construction. And they've gotten their supplier, which is Fiberglass Hawaii in Hawaii, to bring in some of these products and make them more broadly available so that it's not just the Timponis using it, but they're arguably the Timponi's competitors, other board builders are now using it. And so we're starting to see this transition into using these other products. And one thing that Nick pointed out that is kind of in contrast to the way that you and I discuss, quote, alternative materials over the years, is this isn't just an alternative construction and it's not just a equivalent construction. It is a better construction. He's like, our goal with the Maui Leaf Light has been to improve upon traditional board building materials. So it's not that, look, we're going to use EPS, but we can dampen it to make it feel like what you're used to feeling. No, no, no. We're using these things because it's a better surfboard. It feels better in the water. It's more responsive and it's more durable. The thing lasts forever. And so those are some of the talking points that I want to kind of reiterate whenever we talk about sustainability in surfboards. Specific to their Maui Leaf Light construction, they're using EPS because it's recyclable. And Nick even states on air, he goes, look, I understand most people aren't recycling EPS. It's not like they're finishing their life with the surfboard, stripping the lamination off, and then sending the EPS to be recycled. However, it is recyclable, and that's a step in the right direction. Or there are cores that are made out of previously used EPS that are recycled. So the core itself is in its second life. For
Marco
laminate,
Foam. Marco
yeah.
Foam does that. Those guys are
So
great.
for this, and then for the lamination portion, they're using hemp and flaxseed cloths instead of fiberglass. So those are renewable sources. Uh, they're using a bio-based resin to laminate as well. So the bio-based resin, it's a percentage of biomaterial in it. So it's not 100%, but it's a step in the right direction. And like I stated, if you support these things, then it changes the supply chain, and the supply chain can make it available to a broader number of people, which brings the cost down. And then the bio resin manufacturer can invest in making it 50% bio-based instead of 25% bio-based. And then eventually we get to 100% bio-based. So I think it's important to support these things. I have two Maui Leaf Light boards. Actually, one of them is right above me right now, right there. And they're fantastic. The boards are incredible. I've had them for years. They work well. They're very durable. And so we're going to give one away at the end of this month, the Maui Leaf Light, to one of our listeners.
Cool. I'm super excited to be offering with you another board for our listeners. I did an interview on the Boardroom podcast with Greg Lohr a few months ago, 6 months ago or whatever. And he spoke about environmentally friendly resins, because I was like, where are we with this, And you'd be surprised how incredible the resins are as far as, you know, earth conscious,
Good.
and they're getting better and better.
Yeah. Good. Well, all steps in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, David, we've said a lot.
I got two.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have a couple more moments?
Yes, I do.
I just want to acknowledge, as our Duke of the Week, Jeff McCoy died at his home in Byron Bay this week. He was 79 years old. Jeff McCoy,
Sad.
board builder, surfboard designer, kind of forever linked. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, a fabric of surf history and surf legacy, and a classic example of surfboard building industry icon, and somebody that those are the types of people that I think our culture should be lifting up.
Can you speak at all? I know it's off the cuff, but to his board design, I know the laser zap, but where does the laser zap land in the board kind of design evolution? And what do you know him for?
Well, I really can't speak with a whole
Okay.
lot of authority on Jeff McCoy. I wish I could. I know about as much as everybody else knows, which is Shane Horan and the laser zap. But I will say this, that as we look at the surfboard design timeline, there are things that sometimes get glossed over for whatever reason. Like the twin fin kind of dominated those 3 or 4 years, some from say 77 to right before the tri-fin in 81. And the laser zap was involved in that same time frame. But because Mark Richards dominated more or less, 4 world titles in a row, the laser zap probably didn't get, in my opinion, the type of comb through that it deserves from a design standpoint.
Great. Matt Warshaw often says he is not a surfboard design expert. And so you can rely on the Encyclopedia of Surfing for a lot of things, but surfboard design is his one thing that he's not like super confident about. However, whenever I hear him talk about surfboard design, he nails it. So I don't know why he feels that insecurity, but I went to him, of course, to look up Jeff McCoy's history, and he does talk about the laser zap. And the way that he explains it is McCoy was obsessed with triangles and wanted surfboards to kind of thought that there was validity in the triangle shape in surfboards. So he designed that laser zap as kind of the wide point way, way back, and then almost a needle nose. And it was that transitioning from the twin fin era. He put 3 fins on the laser zap, and that was a stepping stone to then Simon Anderson's thruster. And so a lot of the things that the laser zap did are now implemented in almost all, high performance shortboards. Shane Horan obviously is forever entwined with Jeff McCoy in our minds. And Shane took to Instagram a couple of days ago to acknowledge the passing. And he said, quote, "From the beginning, it was you and me against the world. So much resistance to our developments. Now today, our designs are on almost every surfboard. When we went too far, we came back. When we weren't deep enough, we went deeper. Our journey will always be special, etched in our DNA. I know you are flying now, free at last. Rest in peace. Always keep the vibe alive. Love you."
No, that's sweet. I love that. Right on,
Yeah.
Shane. And rest in power to Jeff McCoy, an absolute icon.
Totally. And Shane Haram, by the way, is in California right now, and I'm going to be interviewing him for Surf Splendor, publishing that next week, I believe next week. So look forward to that. My must-see moment presented by treeswax.com, the only petroleum-free surf wax, was sent to me by a listener. Instagram account is called Kaze Surf, Kaze Surf. And last week they compiled what they felt were Kelly Slater's 10 key surfing moments. I think it's impossible to list only 10, of course, because his career is so long. But I really did appreciate going back and just looking at these 10. Brought back phenomenal memories and really just blew my mind. I mean, look, his surfing's mind blowing. It always has been. Even the old stuff still looks insane. And so the list of waves that they showcase are his perfect 10 barrel at backdoor in 2019, his backside 360 air at trestles in 2015, where he comes detached from the board and then lands on it and then gets back to his feet. Got like a 4.7 for that, but it was, or 4.17, but it was insane. They post his 2 barrel combo at Cloudbreak in 2016. They post his crazy 540 rotation in Portugal in 2014. Remember that 540 air that Peter King filmed? It wasn't during an event, but it was just like this insane rotation. They post the last second ride that he needed at J Bay in 2005 to get the score that he needed. The perfect 10 barrel at Chopu in 2014. They post that insane 360 air that he did in New York during the event in 2011. Another perfect 10 at Chopu in 2014. And then an air that I forgot about, which was during an event at Trestles in 2014, which is just a huge straight air. And so revisiting Kelly's top clips is my must see moment.
Okay. Well, look, we've had a great show, David. We've said a lot. Until next time, adios and aloha.